Hello. Thank you for visiting the Other Woman and Man Stories channel. Don't forget to subscribe. And here we go. Dylan and Nora met when they were both in their third year at a prestigious university and were 20 years old. The young and ambitious guy was studying law and dreamed of becoming a successful lawyer in the future. Nora was studying English literature at the philology faculty and wanted to pursue a postgraduate degree. At that time, they were both dating other people and had no idea that their lives would soon change dramatically after a chance encounter. This happened at a massive party at a countryside cottage owned by their mutual friend named Jake. More than 100 guests gathered for the event, mostly students from their university. The party promised to be wild. Numerous bottles of alcohol and boxes of pizza adorned the tables. There was a barbecue grill in the yard with shish kebabs, and the large pool quickly turned into a favorite spot for swimming and socializing. The music blared so loudly that the surrounding houses trembled. Dylan arrived accompanied by his fellow classmates. He had never liked noisy parties and felt uncomfortable in crowds of unfamiliar people. However, he decided to make an exception for the sake of his friends. At first, Dylan simply stood aside with a plastic cup and watched the merriment. But soon, Dylan's gaze was drawn from the crowd to a slender girl with long red hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. She stood slightly apart from the main group of guests, engaged in a lively conversation with her friends near the pool. There was something unusual and captivating about her appearance and demeanor. Perhaps it was her energy, or maybe it was her genuine, wide smile and infectious laughter. In any case, the girl stood out from the others. Dylan was observing her with interest, trying to remember where he might have seen this beauty before. When their eyes unexpectedly met, the girl smiled sweetly and waved at him, as if he were an old acquaintance. Soon, she headed in Dylan's direction and introduced herself. Her name was Nora, and she was also in her third year, but studying in a different faculty. They chatted effortlessly about their studies, professors, and the typical student life, discussing English literature, Shakespeare, music, and shared interests. It turned out that Dylan and Nora had a lot in common in their views and passions. The conversation flowed so easily and pleasantly in the company of this girl, as if they had known each other for years. At some point, they even stopped noticing the hustle and bustle of the party around them, completely immersed in their own world for two. Dylan felt a special connection between them that he had never experienced before. Even with his girlfriend, it wasn't as effortless. He felt like Nora felt the same way. They chatted until the early hours of the morning, unaware that most of the guests had already gone home. Parting ways, Dylan and Nora exchanged phone numbers, promising to call each other. Within a couple of weeks, they broke up with their previous partners and began dating actively, spending every weekend together. Their relationship developed rapidly, as if they had known each other for years. Just as quickly, they got married a year later, after graduating from university. They had their wedding in Dylan's hometown, a small provincial town where they moved to after getting married. The first 2 years of their life together truly seemed idyllic. Dylan was building his career as a lawyer, while Nora found a position as an English literature teacher in a middle school. After their work days, they often took leisurely walks through the streets of their hometown, holding hands and enjoying each other's company. Sometimes they would visit the park to feed squirrels and listen to the chirping of birds. On Fridays, the spouses always had a date night. They would go to the movies, a cafe, or a restaurant. On weekends, they loved escaping to the countryside, having picnics by the picturesque lake nearby, or gathering a group of friends for camping. Dylan was absolutely certain that their marriage was happy and strong. He had complete trust in Nora and didn't even entertain the thought that this happiness could someday come to an end. But life surprised him with an encounter with Jake, the same guy from the party where he had met Nora. After graduating from university, they had seen each other only twice when they went to a bar with some classmates, and during that time, Jake had changed significantly. Now, in front of Dylan, stood not the former adventurer and party lover, but a prestigious lawyer who had founded his own law firm. Jake, delighted by the chance meeting with his old friend, suggested meeting after work for a drink of whiskey. Nothing foreshadowed trouble. "How's life?" Dylan asked in the evening as they took their seats at the bar and placed their orders. "Great," Jake replied with a smile. "My law firm is thriving. I finally bought a car a month ago, and in a week, I plan to propose to my beloved girlfriend. I'm definitely lucky in life. How about you?" "No complaints," Dylan said. "Of course, I don't have my own law firm or a car, but I'm definitely lucky with my wife." "Really?" Jake was surprised. "You got married again." Dylan looked at his friend questioningly, furrowing his thick brows. "Again? What do you mean? I married Nora after university, and we've been together ever since." Jake stared at his friend in astonishment, comically opening and closing his mouth. Jake mumbled incoherently, not knowing what to say. "Why are you reacting so strangely?" Dylan asked with irritation. He was getting angry because he couldn't understand Jake's reaction, and he didn't like what was happening. "Well, despite his usual self-assuredness, Jake spoke with embarrassment. "I saw your wife recently." "And?" Dylan asked impatiently. "She was on a double date with me." Jake became even more embarrassed. I was on a date with my girlfriend, and Nora was with someone else." Dylan fell silent and stared at his friend in disbelief. He felt a mixture of sharp pain, a sense of betrayal, and animal rage. "With whom?" He gritted his teeth, clenching his fists in anger. It seemed that as soon as Jake mentioned the name of this person, he would immediately rush to break his face. "With a woman," Jake confessed. Nora introduced that woman as her colleague and girlfriend at the same time. Dylan felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over him, washing away his anger. He sat there, stunned by what he had heard. He had never expected Nora to be capable of infidelity, especially with another woman. His thoughts were in disarray, all jumbled up. "Listen, I didn't want to upset you," Jake began cautiously. "Maybe it's just a misunderstanding." "Yeah, a misunderstanding," Dylan bitterly chuckled. "Thanks for telling me. At least one of us remains honest." He downed his whiskey in one gulp, slapped some money on the bar, and left without saying goodbye. Dylan returned home in a daze. He didn't know what to do with this information. Divorce. But could he simply erase Nora from his life like that? He loved her, despite everything. And could he seriously expect their passionate youthful romance to turn into a strong marriage? People change, feelings fade. Maybe Nora was just trying to find herself. At home, Dylan found his wife at dinner. She smiled at him happily, as if nothing had happened. Dylan silently sat across from her, looking at Nora thoughtfully. "How's work?" she asked as she served her husband some steamed vegetables. Dylan sighed. Of course, this wasn't the time or place for explanations. "Just the usual," he evasively replied. "How was your day?" "Oh, I had such a great lesson with the senior class today. We were dissecting Hamlet, and the kids had a real discussion based on the play. I'm so proud of them." Dylan listened to his wife in silence. He still couldn't believe that his beloved wife could betray him. Maybe he had done something wrong all this time. What could have gone wrong in their married life? After dinner, when Dylan settled on the couch with a book, Nora sat down next to him and embraced him by the shoulders. "Reading something interesting?" she asked with a smile. "Yes, it's a book from your home library. A novel about the love of two women in Victorian England," Dylan replied after a pause. "It's very touching, with many references to life." "To life?" Nora was surprised. "Yes," Dylan replied. "To our life." "I know the truth, Nora. I know about the double date with Jake, his girlfriend, and your lover." Nora silently looked at her husband, and her expression made it difficult to discern her emotions. After a brief silence, she sighed heavily and said, "I'm sorry, Dylan. I didn't want you to find out like this." Dylan slowly closed the book and looked at his wife. Sadness and disappointment were evident in his eyes. "So it's true? You're having an affair?" Nora looked down and nodded. "Yes. It happened by accident a few months ago. I didn't want to deceive you, but emotions got the better of me. Please forgive me." "I realize my guilt," Nora said. Dylan let out a heavy sigh. He felt pain and bitterness from this betrayal. "I can't just forgive you, Nora. You shattered my trust." "I need to think," he replied. The next day, Dylan packed his things and moved into a separate apartment. He couldn't be near Nora anymore after her infidelity. Several months passed since those events. During this time, Dylan had a lot to reconsider, and he realized that despite the pain of betrayal, he still loved Nora. After all, they had spent many happy years together. Everyone can make a mistake. He wanted to forgive his wife and give their relationship another chance. So he called Nora and invited her to meet and discuss their future. However, during the meeting, Nora sadly told Dylan that she had moved in with her lover and they had decided to live together. "I truly appreciate that you found the strength to forgive me," Nora said. "But over these months, I've realized that my heart belongs to her. I'm sorry." Dylan let out another heavy sigh. Of course, her words hurt him deeply. To spend so many years together, for what? To end their story like this? But he understood that he had no right to stand in the way of Nora being with someone she genuinely loved. "I respect your choice, Nora. I wish you happiness. Someday maybe I'll find mine." "Goodbye," Dylan said, and with those words, he turned and walked away, leaving Nora alone. That's the story. Share your thoughts in the comments about this situation and the behavior of the spouses. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and be sure to like this video. It will greatly help promote the channel.